Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Eastside People Festival of Trusteeship. This session is Trusteeship Transformed, Bold Ideas from the Front Line. I'm Bernice Rook, Deputy CEO at Eastside People. I'm just going to run through a bit of housekeeping before we start. So the session's being recorded, as you can see. Single session ticket holders will be sent links to the session recording tonight, and weekly pass holders will get the recordings, all of the recordings for the sessions at the end of the week. You've been muted automatically when you come in. Please stay muted unless you're asked to unmute, as it helps making sure we can hear everybody clearly. Closed captions are available. You'll need to click on CC or closed captions on your device to enable them. Please feel free to use the chat to ask questions or share your opinions or experiences. We'd love to hear from you, and we've had some fantastic comments and sharing of resources in the session so far. But please keep comments respectful, useful, accurate, and remember the session is in the public domain, so don't share anything which you wouldn't want to be made public. Also, feel free to ignore the chat. It can get really, really busy and you might want to ignore it and focus on the discussion instead. And if you've got, when you sent the session, you'll be sent the chat as well, so you can catch up afterwards. When we read out any questions from the chat, we'll always make sure we read them out fully. Another quick thing, if we refer to legalities, it will generally be for trustees in England and Wales, and though much of it is transferable elsewhere, please do check local regulations. If you don't already have a weekly pass, you can still get one, which will give you access to all of the rest of the sessions and the recordings. And finally, a big, big thank you to the Institute of Leadership. It's thanks to their headline sponsorship that we can make the festival so accessible, thanks to all of our other sponsors and partners you can see on the slide there. Now, this session is running a little bit differently to the sessions we've had so far, and I'm going to hand over to Penny, who's going to take it from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernice. So welcome to Trusteeship Transformed, Bold Ideas from the Front Line. So I'm Penny, I'm the festival director, and I'm chairing the first half of this session. And then I'm going to pass over to Alex Evans, who's got the much more tricky task of chairing the second half of the session. So this is how this session is going to work. You're going to need to listen very carefully because you are very much involved. We've got 11 very brave volunteers. They are each going to pitch an idea for up to 3 minutes. And their idea is to revolutionise something about trusteeship. We're then going to go to an audience vote. Before we get to the vote, please feel absolutely free to ask questions, to make comments, to share your thoughts on the pitches in the chat. An extra plea today to please be really kind. These panelists are all volunteers. They've all put a lot of work into their pitches and they're really brave and they're really generous. And if we're commenting on their ideas, not on them. And their job really is to give us food for thought. We know that some of the ideas aren't that likely or practical, but it's excellent food for thought. After the audience vote, Alex is going to sum up some of the ideas and some of the kind of strands and themes from the pitches. And then he's going to chair a Q&A from your questions. So please put questions in the chat at any point during the session, whether you want to listen to them all first and then ask your questions or ask them as we go along. Pitches, I'm going to keep you strictly to time. They already know this. So you've got 3 minutes. After 2.5 minutes, I've got this very old school notice that I'm going to start to wave in front of you, and I will stop you at 3 minutes or we'll be here till 2027. Attendees, as we're going, please take note of the pitches that particularly appeal to you. I am going to put a list in the chat, but I'm not going to do it until Audrey speaks, who is our 11th pitcher, because I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. So I'm going to hand over to Alex, who's going to get our pitches started.
Right. Okay, everyone. So we're ready to go. The first thing I want to remind you is that Penny came into your homes yesterday and put electrodes in your chairs. So the minute you go over 3 minutes, you will be electrocuted. So now you know that. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Okay, over to you, Helen.
Hello, everybody. So my pitch is that every trustee should have an individual CPD plan. And so why is that what I think is important? Well, for a start, it's embedded in the new Charity Governance Code of Conduct, right? It was published on Monday. I'm sure we've all read it. It's our nighttime reading, but Principle 8 in there is around board effectiveness. And it's really clear in there that trustees should have an induction and an individual learning plan and a whole board learning plan. But almost aside from it being the rules, I just think it's good practice, right? Too often, in my experience, both as a member of staff working to trustees and a trustee, I'm a trustee in 2 organisations right now, trustees behave and are treated as if somehow they are the finished article, like they are beyond development. They have reached the giddy heights of trusteeship and they are somehow untouchable in terms of CPD. And I think it's a really unhelpful position and place to find ourselves and to put others in. Everyone benefits in organisations when there is a culture of continuous improvement and ongoing professional development at every layer of an organisation, from trustees down. So we have a responsibility as trustees to invest in the continuing development of our practice, but also as a way of role modelling for any volunteers in our organisation or staff in our organisation that CPD is for everyone. It might be CPD focused on a knowledge acquisition, it might be a new skill or refining a skill, or it might be behavioural. If we think about some of the challenges that sometimes come for trustees and members of staff for organisations who have them, often they are in the behavioural space. And for me, it's important to recognise that work we're doing in charities and the sector we are operating in is always evolving. There are always new things that we need to be across to understand, new spaces to learn how to operate within. So if I think about my own practice in that, I've learned massively in the last 3 to 5 years around the world of equity, diversity and inclusion. I am just scratching at the surface of everything I do not know and frankly scares me about AI. And if I think about the 2 charities I'm involved with, I'm a co-chair for Dogs for Good. We train assistance dogs for people who are in wheelchairs. I am learning masses about animal assistance, a topic and a subject area I've not been near before. And I'm also a trustee for Abortion Talk. So I'm learning a lot about women's health. So for me, this is about what we gain as trustees as well as what we give to our organisations. If we have a CPD plan, it is an excellent modelling of volunteering as something that is mutually beneficial for us as individuals and for our organisations. And we need to think about this not as an obligation, but as an exciting opportunity and adventure. We should think about how we can enjoy having a CPD plan, not endure it. If we do this, we can stay curious, we can stay competent, we can stay current.
Amazing. 4 seconds left. Thank you so much, Helen. Well done. You've set the bar really, really high. We're going to move straight on to Kemi.
Thank you. I think I might happily lower the bar. Hi, everybody. My name's Kemi. It's great to be with you all. My bold idea is that we need to debate more on charity boards and as trustees. My thinking came from that it strikes me we've got a bunch of people which are dedicated or eccentric enough who have worked out what a trustee is, and we've committed our time and our experience to support charities and organisations that pretty much sort of support sort of government and other sectors. We provide the support that should be ideally be available. We're also in a time that of that kind of keyboard warriors, like you can't barely sort of put anything on social media without sort of being criticised or shot down. Even the type of reaction you put can be sort of subject to criticism. So my thinking was around the fact that we come together for meetings, we sacrifice our evenings, we grit our teeth when it's a sunny day unexpectedly and we have to go onto a Zoom call or into a meeting room. And we often have like a set agenda. We've read the papers in advance, but quite often those agendas can be sort of quite strict and stifled, albeit necessary. My thinking is, why don't we have more discussions on some items which may be seen not even controversial, but just to get people's different perspectives. If we think of some examples we quite often see in the Charity Commission, or sadly when it makes the press, there's lots of challenging circumstances that charities can find themselves in, and it's quite easy to say, oh, that would never happen here, or that would never happen to me. But I also equally think that's an opportunity for trustees and charities to sit down and think, oh, actually, what was it that actually made that happen? And is there a possibility that that could happen here? Equally, again, Helen alluded to sort of EDI, like why don't we have the conversation there in terms of why is it we can't attract a more diverse pool of candidates? What is it that's stopping us? And in my mind, because of the code of ethics and responsibility we have of trustees, we've already set the baseline that that conversation should be mature, it should be professional, it should be respectful. So we hopefully remove the kind of social media keyboard warrior risk of actually saying something that, heaven forbid, somebody might actually disagree with, and we actually have a healthy conversation in terms of why that won't work, and actually see how we can actually take those forwards. The outcome be it might be nothing for the charity, but you might learn something from a trustee who's a colleague and you've just never had that conversation before. So that is basically my idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Kemi. Also under time. Very good. And now we're going to move straight on to Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and I think that trustees should be paid. Did you know that the average age of a charity trustee in the UK is 65? 54% of trustees are retired, and only 8% of trustees are aged 44 or under. Around 92% of trustees are white, which means that only 8% are from ethnic minority backgrounds. 57% of trustees are male. That doesn't sound too bad, but 65% of chairs are male and 63% of treasurers are male. Around 65% of trustees come from professional socio-economic backgrounds, while only 29% come from working class backgrounds. Research also shows that trustees are, on average, materially better off than the general population. Furthermore, trustees are disproportionately drawn from the professional and managerial careers and often do not have a lived experience of the causes they are representing. I work in the international development space, and it is very, very rare to see boards having any representation of those from the global south. By nature of the role, trusteeships are voluntary and unpaid. This immediately excludes people who can't afford to give time without pay, particularly young adults, parents, those with caring responsibilities, those on lower incomes, and those in insecure work. The unpaid model is in itself a barrier to diversity, inclusion, and effective governance. In short, the charity setup we have at the moment with a voluntary board of trustees means that in our sector there is a current structural bias towards privilege. Most charities champion fairness, equality, and inclusion in their missions, but many fall short on doing this in their own governance. As trustees, we can spend a lot of time hand-wringing about the lack of diversity on boards. We can craft a beautiful equality, diversity, and inclusion policy, but things will never really change unless we put our money where our mouth is. Paying trustees isn't about professionalising charity for the sake of it. It's about removing financial barriers to participation so governance truly reflects the community served. If we want governance that truly represents society, we can't rely on the goodwill of only those who can afford to volunteer. Offering payment to trustees will open doors to people who bring insight, energy, and real-world understanding that boards often lack. There are so many benefits to paying trustees. It would help organisations to attract and retain a more diverse, skilled board. It would encourage diversity of thought to help boards make better decisions, and it would improve board performance and accountability. It would increase commitment and even attendance. In many other countries, charity trustees or board members of non-profits are paid. It's also common in the UK public sector. Non-executive directors of NHS trusts, housing associations, and public bodies are routinely paid. So why aren't trustees? Unpaid trusteeship was designed for a different era, and our current system rewards and perpetuates unfair systems of privilege and creates structural inequality. By paying trustees, we would not only modernise the boards, but we would also make it possible for everyone to have a seat at the table. Thanks.
Thank you, Olivia. That was very well put. Right, we're going to move straight on now to Suzy.
Hi, so my idea is twofold. It's a trustee internship scheme and a roving trusteeship. Both are anchored in the principle of injecting fresh thinking and diverse lived experiences onto charity boards and broadening the pool of experts that those charities can tap into, while reducing the term of service to 12 months versus the sort of standard 3-year rolling term. The benefits for both are similar, but for the internship, it would be for those who've never experienced being on a board before, so especially younger people. And the roving trusteeship could be for more experienced trustees who want a more entrepreneurial engagement with charities. So for the internship, it brings younger perspectives to the board, it creates a talent pool for longer term trustee roles down the line, and it can provide an opportunity for reverse mentoring for some people who've been on the board for a bit longer. And for the roving trusteeship, it can really be a shot in the arm if a charity is struggling or just starting out, to help them scale and grow. Their expertise could trigger a transformation project or culture change, or really just make an impact for the 12 months that they're there. And it can be a way to get some specific pro bono support in a specific area like legal, finance or digital, rather than having to pay for that. The benefits of both is that there's a cross-pollination of ideas and best practice, with interns and roving trustees moving around the charity sector, leading to increased opportunities for collaboration and partnerships that could scale impact. It will really mix things up. It will bring an injection of fresh energy, enthusiasm, creativity, and greater diversity of input into decision making every 12 months to stop the board stagnating. And it could demonstrate inclusive leadership. So the charities who would take on an intern or a roving trustee to supplement their board for 12 months would actually be able to demonstrate they're being more inclusive, and it's great for their reputation. The benefits to the interns and the trustees are that obviously for interns, it provides that hands-on experience, which some people might not have had before they consider joining a board for a longer period. For the roving trustees, it really gives the opportunity to be more entrepreneurial. They can spread the love, i.e. their skills and expertise, more widely across the charity sector versus just one charity. And they can also grow their skills and knowledge and satisfy their curiosity. And for both, it's really enjoyable. You can move onto a board after 12 months, no time to get bored or to let the grass grow under your feet. And I recognise that this isn't for everybody, but for some people, it could be just the route into trusteeship that they're looking for.
Thank you. I was just about to give you your time warning. Great, Suzy, thank you. Over to Pauline.
Thanks very much, everybody. So my pitch is that trustees should proactively share their network with the charity they serve. And I was specifically thinking about social networks, but other networks are available too. I'm an ambassador for West Midlands Funders Network, having been a trustee and committee member for far too many years, really. But I'm really happy to keep supporting the charity. I was previously a trustee for the Small Charities Coalition, much missed, and Irish in Britain, a national body that serves Irish organisations around Britain. I'm also co-organiser of Open Data Camp, and I co-present Dr. Tech Show on YouTube on Mondays at 12 to 1. My idea about trustees proactively sharing their networks with the charity they serve is that they should be regularly, as I do, scouring LinkedIn particularly. I think is my weapon of choice at the moment in social media, because X has gone to other places. So I am regularly scouring LinkedIn, looking for reading Alex's posts, obviously, and Penny's as well, and finding out nuggets of wisdom for the many organizations that I serve. It probably reflects my professional standing, that I'm a librarian originally and a journalist, so it comes naturally to me. But I think all of us have must have some connections on LinkedIn these days. It's impossible not to. I have over 2,000, and so I get a good mixture of things. If the LinkedIn algorithm is behaving itself, that's another conversation for another day. I also post on Blue Sky for Open Data Camp. Again, with the absence of X, Twitter as it was, that was such a valuable resource. It's a shame that it doesn't exist anymore, because it not in the way it did anyway. So we can't have that. But LinkedIn, as I say, I think is valuable, should be valuable to all charity trustees. They should be on there. I think there's a reticence sometimes to be visible as a trustee, but I think that should be in the past. We need to be up front and center, manifesting our belief. Why do we join a trustee board if we weren't going to help the organization that we're responsible for working with? Facebook is another matter. I'm not sure if it's useful for trustees to post on there. It's a different place. There may be others may disagree with me, but yeah, please let's have a conversation about doing more on LinkedIn for our charities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pauline. Over to Tania.
Hello. Hi, I'm Tania. I'm the editor of Governance and Leadership magazine. Thank you so much for having me today. So my bold idea is that every would-be founder of a new charity should have to serve on the board of an existing one in the same cause area for a certain length of time, say maybe 1 year, before they're allowed to set up a charity of their own. I believe this would go some way to helping solve a lot of problems in the sector. So first of all, duplication of effort. This is just simply wasteful. Let's face it, we've got thousands of charities already operating in every charitable purpose area, and yet too many new founders go barreling in, setting up yet another organisation with little or no awareness of the other charities already operating in their area. It would also not add further to the already stiff competition for funding and other resources such as volunteers, and it would help to fill vacancies on existing charity boards, which the Charity Commission tells us is in the region of around 100,000 posts at any given time. 5,000 new trustees a year would make a bit of a dent in that. It could reduce the Commission's workload, freeing them up to do other things by ultimately reducing the number of new charity applications that are submitted. In July, the Commission said it received over 1,000 applications during the month, which was a record, and it said it believed a growing number of these are being filled in by AI. But the most important problem this idea would solve is that it would reduce the number of charity founders who rush in and set up charities without the foggiest idea of what they're doing and the scale of legal and regulatory oversight that is required to run a charity properly. Inevitably, too many of these run into trouble. We only need look at the Captain Tom Foundation for evidence of this. Now, truth be told, I'm torn on the issue of whether there are too many charities or not. I totally accept that if someone identifies a problem in society or a gap in service provision and they have a burning desire to fix that problem, why should anyone tell them that they can't? But sector funding is not unlimited, and there's already a huge amount of competition for it, without hundreds more organisations joining the fray every month. And too many charities are just poorly governed, or they become personal fiefdoms, or in the worst cases, hotbeds of internal warfare. So my solution is that we should continue to allow 1,000 flowers to bloom, but everyone who wants to start a new charity should have to serve on the board of an existing one in the same cause area for a certain period, either as a full trustee or an associate trustee. In this way, thousands of charities would benefit from new board members bringing ideas, energy, and enthusiasm to make a difference. And the individual would get a taste of what's really required to run a charity, including the challenges of fundraising and the realities of meeting a long and growing list of regulatory responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Tania. 7 seconds left. Very good. We're now going to move to Deepa, whose video isn't working. So we're not going to be able to spotlight Deepa. So I'm afraid you're just going to be looking at me and Alex for the next one. But Deepa, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Deepa Mistry. I am a board member, treasurer of many charities, ranging from quite small to fairly medium sized. Also, in my day job, I'm a CFO. So, you know, I've had both sides of the tale here, and my bold idea really comes from my experience in this setting. So what I would like to talk to you about is the opportunity to address a critical topic, the ethical and the governance questions around artificial intelligence, and what our board must do before we simply draft a usage policy. My proposal is really that before we immediately jump to write this AI policy, we need to educate ourselves as trustees and as a board and the organisation on 3 foundational questions. Number 1, how is the information being put together? Number 2, where is it? And number 3, how reliable and how biased are its inputs? So first of all, I'd like to tackle the question number 1, which is how is this information put together? And behind much of today's AI system is human labour. So there are people who label images, classify the data, they moderate the content. And I've done some research, and some analysis that I've read describes this as human labour powering AI development. And there is an uneven cost-benefit distribution globally. Now, what that means is what we need to ask is who did the labelling and what conditions were they working under? What cultural assumptions have been baked into that data? For example, one study has found that when training data and the label workers, they are heavily dominated by a racial group, then this means that the system is misinterpreting emotions of people from other racial groups. Secondly, I'd like to ask the question, where is it stored? Our physical infrastructure for AI is enormous. We've got massive data centers with servers, cooling systems, storage, and these all often are located in water-stressed areas, which create significant environmental impacts. For example, there's been an investigation finding that tech majors are planning data centers in 5 continents in extreme dry regions where water resources are already under pressure. And another report states that data centers are using and consuming more than 560 billion litres of water annually, and these projections are rising. So as a charity and as trustees, we really must understand the upstream environment and the social cost of the tools that we're adopting. Thirdly, how reliable are these inputs? And how well do these systems reflect diversity in culture, geography, race, age, lived experience? Where we've research published confirming that algorithmic discrimination can arise from recruitment systems, where we've got AI models reproducing bias based on gender, race, age. And if our organization is going to use or plans to use AI, as many do, we've got to ensure that these tools don't embed unfairness or amplify inequity. So I'm proposing that the board first, before they do their policy writing, commission a short educational program for trustees and senior staff. We cover the fundamentals in AI.
Deepa, I'm afraid you're out of time. I'm going to give you a bonus 5 seconds to wrap up.
Thank you. Okay, we're commissioning the educational program. We're mapping organizations' potential exposure, where we look at the tools, and you make sure that we then confidently draft a usage policy looking at all of these ethical and moral questions. Thank you. Apologies for going over time.
5 seconds, all good, thank you. We're now going to pass over to Joe. Joe, if you could put your video on, we'll spotlight you. Thank you. Joe Saxton.
Hello, my name's Joe Saxton. I'm chair of the Association of Chairs. And what I would like to propose is that by law, employers should have to give their employees time off to be a trustee. Now, this is actually in many ways very simple. There's already a law, and if you are a magistrate and if you are a governor, your employer has to give you time off by law. It doesn't mean you have to be paid, so you may have to take your own time off, but they cannot deny you the time off if you are going to be a governor or you're going to be a magistrate. But currently, they can do it if you're going to be a trustee. Now, in my book, being a governor is hugely valuable. Being a magistrate is hugely valuable, but so is being a trustee. And if we want to increase the type of people who can be trustees, one of the things is people in work, because where I disagree with Olivia is the bigger barrier to people being trustees is not money, it's about time. And if you're in employment and nobody will give you the time off, then how on earth are you going to be a trustee? So we can make a simple amendment to a law. There was an MP who tried it in 2014. The Conservative government wouldn't buy it, but actually it could be done very simply and very easy. And it will be a small step towards improving the pool of people, increasing the pool of people who could be trustees. There you are. I've made up for Deepa's overrun now.
Thank you, Joe. That was very community-minded of you.
That's the kind of guy I am.
And you've caught me by surprise, but luckily I'm ready to spotlight Hannah. Thank you.
My bold idea is that trustee training should be mandatory. Why? Trustees often come with some well-developed skills and experience. Over half of trustees are retired, so they have a professional lifetime of skills and experience to bring. What they are less likely to have is knowledge and understanding of the context in which to use these skills. Imagine a professional accountant who specialises in audits for FTSE 500 companies, taking on a role as a treasurer at a local charity. Their financial skills are chef's kiss. However, their knowledge and understanding of charity finance is limited. Things like what goes into fundraising forecasts, they're not like sales. How to evaluate the success of a charity by impact rather than surplus income. Layer upon this their potential lack of knowledge and understanding of the unique challenges of those that rely on charitable support and reliance on volunteers to operate effectively. In this new, completely unknown context, their skills are not as useful as we need them to be. But try telling them this. Try telling someone on £500,000 a year, giving their time for free, that perhaps they need to go back to school. This scenario is playing out across boards all the time for a wide range of skills and professional experience, not just finance, marketing, strategy, HR, professional skills that are lacking the context-specific knowledge to be effective. Currently, training is optional. This means only the kind of brilliant trustees like you that we have here today, who are self-aware enough to realise they could do better, seek to improve. If we make training mandatory, then it requires any and all trustees whose lack of self-awareness, maybe their pride, maybe their arrogance, to attend at least one session where their understanding might be increased even just a little. And if we coordinate this with Helen's excellent suggestion of trustees' individual CPD plans, hopefully governance will improve. But how do we pay for it? The perennial challenge of infrastructure support. And for an initiative like this, there needs to at least be the hint of sustainability. So here's 3 suggestions. Number 1, the dormant asset scheme. Ring fence annual spend to invest in effective governance for the sector. All very well doing specific stuff, but let's make something sustainable. 2, the contracted annual income from CAF to NCVO, which represents several £millions a year. Ring fence a proportion of this for practical support to improve the sector's governance across every single area of what we do. 3, corporate sponsorship. Brand this up like a sporting event. Point out there are 1 million trustees in the UK. So the awareness raising aligned with the positive association of intrinsic values would be sky high, and sell it to the highest bidder on a 3-yearly rotational basis. Treat it like an opportunity for them, not a boon to us. To summarise, trustees don't always know what they don't know, and they are often unwilling to admit it. By making training mandatory, we ensure everyone at least has access to the knowledge and understanding they need to be better trustees. Thank you.
Perfectly timed,
Hannah.
Hannah. Thank you.
Amazing. Go, girl.
You're meant to be independent, Alex.
Sorry.
Right, we're going now over to Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Hi, I'm Rebecca, or Bex, and later this month I step down from the board of Devon Wildlife Trust after 2 wonderful terms. As Olivia touched on earlier, over half the population of England and Wales are 44 years old or younger, but recent Charity Commission research found that only 8% of trustees come from this age group, and even more alarming, only 1% of trustees are aged 30 or under. It's news to none of us that we need more diversity on boards. And there are so many ways to tackle the barriers that young people face when becoming a trustee. In fact, the next session after this is all about that, and I highly recommend you attend. One strategy that more charities are employing is the creation of dedicated youth trustee roles. This sounds really, really good on paper, but in practice can be highly problematic for 4 main reasons. Firstly, definition. What does youth mean? The term trustee is already poorly misunderstood, and youth isn't much better. In the UK, most legal systems define youth as children between 10 and 17, while the UN says youth is between 50 and 24. When I joined the board, I was age 22. I was working multiple jobs and helping to raise a child. I did not think of myself as the youth, would you? Secondly, legal responsibility. Anyone elected to the board is a trustee in the eyes of the charity register, so no matter their age, all trustees have the same legal responsibility. This should not be confused. One way around this challenge is to have young people join the board as advisors, but not elect them. This is a great shadowing scheme opportunity, but we must be very careful not to funnel people away from being a trustee purely because they are seen as younger than the rest of the board. Thirdly, tokenism. It was abundantly clear when I joined my first board meeting that I stood out for many reasons. I would not have welcomed another. I've talked to many young people elected to trustee roles who have sadly been sidelined from serious discussions around things like finance, but then pressured for inputs around things like social media and other stereotypically youth things. Finally, age is a protected characteristic under the Equality Act, just like race, disability, and sexual orientation. Boards typically refrain from establishing seats for other characteristics, like disabled trustee, so we should really carefully consider doing so for age. I want to be really clear, this does not mean that there shouldn't be tailored support for demographics. I highly admire and have benefited from the work of the Young Trustees movement, and I want to shout out Board Racial Diversity UK and Queer Trustees. But as one charity CEO recently remarked to me, targeted advertising meant we recruited 2 new trustees under 24. We don't call them anything different. Why would we? They bring their own skills and knowledge and are brilliant, just like the rest of our board. It's really obvious to us all that the charity sector has a lot of work to do on diversity, and there is plenty we can do to promote true inclusion. We need more young people on boards, but let's not pigeonhole them into youth trustee roles.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bex. And then our final picture, Audrey.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Audrey Roy. I'm currently on my third trustee role with a gap of about 20 years between the first, second and the third. And I just want to congratulate all of my fellow panelists for some brilliant pitches. I've actually got a slightly cheeky double pitch whammy, being the strategic big picture girl that I am, in that I think the big picture is about everything we've said this evening and possibly everything we're going to be talking about all week, which is that we as current or aspiring or would-be trustees need to be bold and break the mold. Quite simply, every idea here deserves to be on the table as a working premise. But I'd like to just come down a little bit and focus on one specific thing, which actually piggybacks on, or you could consider it a step up or a cheeky pinch, whichever you fancy, which is around the ideas that have already been pitched this afternoon, such as Suzy's internship idea, Helen's CPD, Rebecca's idea about more younger trustees, Hannah's idea around mandatory training, and so on. And that is about apprenticeships. That is my big idea, underneath that being bold and breaking the mold. I think apprenticeships would provide a formal probationary period to test the mutual fit, how many people are worried about or lack confidence in being a trustee and therefore don't put themselves forward. And we've got a session on that later on about your confidence. It would encourage younger trustees, Rebecca, I've hit your nail on the head there, and bridge the socio-economic divide by allowing people from more diverse backgrounds to just put a toe in the water, but to do it in a planned entry route, to allow them to have a professional qualification, to treat, and the key is in that word, this as a profession. Just because we are volunteers does not mean this is not a formal role that we take on in terms of learning and CPD. And the point that was just made about how many of us, lovely one, Hannah, by the way, go into this thinking, do we actually really know what we're doing? And the reality is very often we know a bit, but not everything. I have 33 years of natural environment experience, but do I know one end of a financial spreadsheet for another? Oh, God, no. So I've really had to learn without any guide rails other than my finance advisor giving me a 2-hour session and then having to work out the rest myself. A planned route would allow people to approach this like a profession. From plumbing to project management, they have apprenticeships. It would also solve one very fundamental issue, which is that grant funders would have to pay for it. So there you have my upshot. Apprenticeships allows a planned route in. It covers a wide range of diverse backgrounds in terms of attracting people into the sector. It recognises, for many of us, passionate and commitment in terms of what we do and why we come into this, whether you agree with paying or not. The reality is it allows us to just be trained more formally for constructive debate, communication, governance, finance and risk management, to name a few. It also allows us to have placement and to just test the waters to see what kind of trustee role might suit us. But there you are. Apprenticeships is where it's at, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Brilliant. Wow. So we've had 11 pitches. I can see the chat has gone absolutely bonkers. I'm going to repost the list of pitches in the chat. Audrey's was slightly different to what I was expecting. It is what we've put, but it's also about apprenticeships. And what we're going to do is we've got a poll and we'd like you to pick the 3 that you prefer, that you want to talk more about, that you think have legs, that you think are the most interesting. Use whichever criteria you fancy. You're not voting for them to happen. You're not voting in a new world leader, so you don't need to you don't need to totally agonize over it. We also know that some of them are overlapping, that some of them aren't equivalent, but that's okay. So once I launch the poll, I expect that out of 174 people, some of you it won't work for you. That will be because your Zoom's not up to date or because you're dialing in on a phone. So if when I launch the poll it doesn't work, please just put your preferred 3 options in the chat. The poll allows you to pick more than 3. So try and be disciplined and just pick 3, please. So I'm going to launch it now. Brilliant. I can see your responses coming in. Thank you. I'm going to show you the results when people have stopped voting because it's going up and up and up.
I think somebody said in the chat, Penny, that they wanted to vote for everything.
Yes, I saw that.
I think, and that was what Audrey sneakily suggested as well.
Basically, that was
You know
Audrey's way of getting all the votes, wasn't it?
Are you literally? Can you literally only vote for 3, or are
No,
people able to?
You can actually vote for all of them because Zoom doesn't allow you to pick 3.
You see, this wouldn't get through the stress test for data management, would it?
It definitely wouldn't, but we're not going to hold you to it, and it's anonymous. Okay, it's still going. So you've got 2 seconds to choose, and then I'm going to stop it so that we can look at the results. Still going up.
Okay. Hold on, are people voting twice?
Is that what's happening? Okay, I'm ending it.
Early and often.
Here come the results.
Ooh, interesting.
So the highest, I think, are trustee training should be mandatory. All trustees should have an individual CPD plan. What I'll do, Alex, is I'll let you speak and then I'll come back with the ranked list.
Okay, fine.
Right. Okay, over to Alex.
Oh yeah, keep it up. That's quite handy. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, brilliant. Those were absolutely amazing pictures, and I was having to like really force myself not to sort of start cheering on a lot of them. So, and then sorry, Hannah, I did on you. So that was outrageous of me. But anyway, amazing pictures, and I would like to do them all, I think. So big thank you. So I'm just going to be really quick. I just want to try and summarize some of the key themes, I think, that have been coming through what you've discussed and how they relate to some of those bigger debates about trusteeship that we all need to have. So the first question, I think, is what are trustees for? And I think we have a lot of different things we expect. Are they for skills or specialist expertise even? We've seen a lot of suggestions around trustees improving their skills. Are they for representation? Are they representing beneficiaries or other stakeholders? So, for example, the question about, you know, should young people or should we have specific youth trustees? Are they there as policemen? Are they there as local representatives of the Charity Commission to keep everyone honest? Or are they influential people with powerful networks, perhaps for people who can unlock funding for you and so on, which people often think? And if the ideal is that they're all of these things at once, I suppose the question is that realistic? And which of those things matter most? And if the trustee model is really the best way for people to contribute to all these things, because there's lots of ways of people putting that in. For example, we mentioned the roving trustees there. And the thing is, in some ways, that sounds like senior volunteering of other types. So all sorts of different possibilities there in terms of how people could contribute. The next question is, who should trustees be? So for a millennium, as Olivia was sort of referring to, trustees were representative of the great and the good and the powerful. And in many cases, there's still a sense that trustees are chosen for their social cachet, for their skills and influence, especially when you come to trusts and foundations and so on. So when we do that, who do we exclude? Likewise, when we say we need skills, who has those skills will obviously have a lot of questions about power. And then is it right that we should ask people to make decisions just because they have particular networks or particular skills? And then the third thing is, what do trustees get out of it? Who has the time? So this is what Joe mentioned. But also, you know, time and money are quite equivalent in our society. You know, it's what wage labor is about. So I think the question is, who has the time to be a trustee? And our current model can enable some, but really disable others. The big question, I think, and this comes back a bit to what Audrey was saying, is there actually an alternative? Right? Despite its age, the charity trustee model is not fixed in stone. It wasn't handed down to us on a mountaintop on stone tablets, although historically it was handed down to us by kings and priests. There are always alternatives that might fit different purposes better. And we can make changes both within that model, but also by thinking about parallel opportunities. So this isn't about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but I think on top of all that other stuff, we need to also ask if sometimes we need a different bath. So what I would say is things can always change, and all of these amazing trustees here are part of that process, and well done for really asking the questions. And so on that note, let's head over to some questions for our panel from the audience. Let's see, I'm looking in the Penny. Where have we got the written questions here in the panel? Your questions, please. Okay, great. My first question is, Kemi, you mentioned the idea that boards need to debate more. How deep should that debate go? When I work with boards and so on, I often see people a little bit worried that if they start to debate, they might open things up and they might suddenly discover that they all disagree. How deep do you think those questions should go?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And thanks to the person who asked the question. I'd say there's two things about that. In terms of any debate, if we are debating properly, it should come with some sort of structure. So if there is a particular topic somebody wants to raise, it should be that sort of context that comes with it, in terms of if it's something that's happened in the that's caused a media storm, picking one or two of those issues to actually see, okay, is this a governance issue? Could it happen in our organisation? Is it a PR issue? Could that happen? So I think any debate, a sort of natural definition of debate, needs to be kind of structured, not necessarily too generalist. And I'd say the second thing, what happens if you all disagree? You're not there as a trustee to agree with each other. You're there to support the charity that you're with, and you can have different views. And in many respects, there's a benefit to having different views, because you do get people's different perspectives whilst still recognising that you need to come together to make decisions. Thanks.
Really good point. And I suppose it's that thing as well that you can disagree and then come to agreement again later. Sometimes it feels like people are worried that they might discover that deep down they have nothing at all in common, which is not difficult when you think about what boards of trustees are like, lots of different people all thrown together.
Yeah.
I was interested as well in Tania and Suzy, both of your suggestions there about there being people in charities in trustee boards who are also people who are actually involved in delivering things in charities. Do you think we need more connection between the people who do in charities and the people who govern? Tania, how about you?
Sorry, just ensuring I understand the question. Do you mean more connection between the staff that are delivering on the ground and the board?
So one of the things you mentioned there was the idea that people who wanted to found a charity and actually run one need to be in governance. So I suppose my question is, that starts to ask questions about whether there should be more involvement and cross-pollination between people who do stuff and people who actually govern it.
Okay, yeah, I suppose when you're starting a new charity, you're going to be starting a small charity, and I would imagine most new founders pretty much do everything, don't they? They're not just sitting there as the chair of a board. They're probably running around delivering all the services and doing all the fundraising and all that as well. Whereas I think that's quite a different situation to a larger charity where the board is completely, or not completely, but quite separate from the paid staff. But I would say, we hear time and time again that too many staff think that the board is far too far removed and doesn't have nearly enough of an understanding of what it actually takes to run the charity and all of the challenges and challenges and opportunities, I guess, that the staff are much more, who are much closer to the work, actually get to see.
So something about sort of openness as well there in terms of between people,
and yes, and I guess trustees being willing to go out and actually really kind of spend time outside of board meetings finding out what happens on the ground.
Excellent. Okay, we've got a question from Tom here. So a key theme across the pitches from people there was, what is it that makes boards more representative? Does anyone have thoughts about how we can tackle this systemic issue about representation when it's clearly quite entrenched? Wow, that's a big question. Anybody got any thoughts on that they want to pitch in on?
Just pay your trustees.
Oh, okay, Olivia. Yeah. Say a bit more about that. Say a bit more.
Olivia, I'm assuming you mean the broad scheme of pay, because certainly the existing CC11 guidance says any trustee subject to the size can pay, but it's defining that. So there's three kind of pays. There's covering your expenses. There's paying you a fixed remuneration, a sort of salary, for want of a better phrase, for hours worked. And then there's paying you if you're contracted to do a specific piece of work outside or out with your charity role. Are you talking about all of those, or just the remuneration one, i.e. I get a salary, I get paid for every hour I work, kind of thing?
I was more thinking the remuneration. I think if we want boards to be more representative and we want to increase diversity on boards, you have to be able to offer financial incentive for people to be able to find that time to be able to sit in that board meeting. I'm not saying trustees shouldn't volunteer outside of that, and I'm not saying that trustees would need to be paid for every single hour that they go to the charity if some of that's in a voluntary capacity, but it's the sort of minimum for attending board meetings. If you pay people the financial remuneration for attending the meeting, you're much more likely to get not only better attendance and commitment, but you're much more likely to attract a more diverse and representative board.
Could I
Hannah, what are your thoughts on that?
My thought was we have a pool of trustees that get appointed. So the board does, there are at least 2 roles. The board does not interview them. They don't choose them. They get given them. In terms of the practicality of that, who those people are, they could be trained, they could be people who know what they're doing, they're people on the apprenticeship. But the point is that there's a number of trustees that are put onto your board, not people you have approved and that you have put through your mill of assessment to make sure you're the right kind of person. That's
to make sure that everyone agrees with you. Yeah. Rebecca.
Yeah, I would like to say that sometimes it can be as simple as just advertising the trustee roles wider. So boards who are missing people, missing communities from their boards, need to look at where they're advertising, if they're advertising at all. We have some really fantastic resources in the governance space that many charities aren't using. I know the recent Charity Commission research found that something like the majority of chairs are still recruited by a kind of tap on the shoulder sort of approach. And that's really outdated and definitely not something we should be encouraging. So yeah, but I also know there are more sessions coming up in the festival to address this. So I'm looking forward to those as well.
I think that's a really good point, Rebecca, as well, that sometimes we tend to be looking for big ideas when in actual fact the ideas are already there. We just need to do them. Yeah. Okay, so Olivia, another one for you. What about the small charities for whom paying trustees wouldn't be financially viable? I mean, that's obviously going to be the first question that people ask, I think.
Yeah, well, I guess firstly to say statistically, smaller charities are often have much more diverse boards actually.
Yes.
The least diverse boards are often larger charities and particularly grant-making foundations. So if you're thinking about sort of smaller grassroots, locally led organisations, often they are fairly representative. So if you're coming at paying trustees from the representation and diversity point of view, then maybe it's not as much an issue for small charities. But I think it comes down to priorities, really. Yes, we want all of our money to be focused on service delivery, but actually charity overheads, I mean, that's another soapbox I don't need to go onto today, but charity overheads are vital. And I think just seeing a financial remuneration of trustees as an overhead of a charity, that's essential.
Well, we have to realize that if we're going to make governance something that we expect a lot of, then that is not cost neutral. The point is who you put the cost onto is really the question, isn't it? Okay, so a question to everyone, I think. Let's see who wants to answer it. Why don't trustees access more development? Why don't they actually develop their skills? What is it that holds them back, do you think?
arrogance. They don't need
Now,
it.
Hannah, you shouted out. That's not like you.
Sorry.
I
already said that. Ignore me.
No.
I think, Alex, sometimes it's also about time. Both Rebecca and many of my panelists have already talked about the fact that many trustees are doing this on the edge of a desk, if they've got a desk, or the edge of the sofa. And we all lead very busy lives. And the reality is, even if you're retired like me, I'm juggling several things. My trusteeship actually takes up a lot of time, not least because I'm a vice chair. And it's not just about diving into 3 or 4 meetings a year. It's about contributing to away days, debating items on an agenda. So the reality is sometimes it's a time constraint, but sometimes it is genuinely, we come into this thinking, as I think Rebecca said latterly, and Hannah also, we come into this with bags of experience and expertise, and we think we're fitted for it. We think we're ready-made the moment we come onto a board. And then suddenly we realize, and this is where the confidence issue comes in, we realize that on some things we know quite a lot, but actually the board isn't going to be diving into half of that expertise. And on other things, we know nothing and we sit there quietly and hope that we'll learn quickly. So the reality is it's a combination of all of those, and it's actually quite a complex issue. I think more formal things like CPD, like better governance, like training, like proper inductions, all of that would help people to come in and understand where their talents best fit. The arrogance issue is an interesting one. I mean, I've taken up trusteeships because I thought I had something to offer. One was a tap on the shoulder because they were so small. They tried 3 times to recruit somebody and no one was interested. And they came across me and thought, she'll do. And I have to be honest and say, did I think I was a token hire because I was black and female and one of the few black faces in the environmental car park? Probably, but I didn't mind that. Similarly, other people would come into because we're passionate and committed about what we do. But the reality is it is very broad and it's very complex, and there's no one size fits all as to the answer to that one.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, on training. Sorry. I was just going to say, we do have some mandatory training with our charity. So talked about time, and I think it's really important. I'm the safeguarding trustee lead, and actually when I started in that role, I didn't specifically have safeguarding expertise, and the charity has supported me. And all now every trustee has just undergone some mandatory training around safeguarding, because it's so important to us as a youth focused charity where we're working with disabled young people, and it was really part of our governance that we wanted all the trustees to do that training, and they all have done it.
Sure. So there's a lot.
Can I just say something in response to that, Alex? Because I really think charities get this wrong sometimes, and this isn't about you and your organisation, Suzy, but in the spirit of good debate.
Just say we've only got a couple more minutes.
In the spirit of good debate, I think sometimes charities prioritise the wrong training for all trustees, and they use a sheep dip approach that comes from a risk and compliance perspective, which is important and has a role, but what would be more helpful would be a nuanced approach that reflects the different skills and experience that trustees are bringing and offers some bespoke development that meets those individual needs and recognises their individual skills and experience that they're bringing. That's a more efficient use of time and charitable resources. And sometimes I get frustrated about the very blunt tool of you must all do this before you can even begin, which doesn't necessarily recognise some of the stuff that many trustees are already bringing.
And so that, Helen, is where your thing about having an actual a particular CPD plan which is tailored to people would come in.
Yeah, different trustees need different training and development.
Sure. Okay. So I think with all of these things, just summing up now, what we've seen is that there are some key strands here. There's stuff about training, there's stuff about payment and having time to trustee, all these kind of things. The specifics of how we actually solve these things, some of them could be done in individual organizations, right? You can do them right now. Some of them might need some kind of structural change. But I think what comes across quite clearly is that if these are all the themes that we're looking at, it makes us pretty clear that those are the places that we need to actually focus, right? And we need to actually think about what can we do about those things. And then the details of it are things that we can work out later. So it strikes me there's a lot of consensus about the kind of things that need to be changed around trusteeship. We just need to work out how to actually make it happen. Bernice, over to you.
Thank you, Alex, and thanks everyone. That was such a brilliant session, absolutely brilliant. All of the pitches, all of the chat. When you log off, there'll be a quick evaluation question. We'd love to hear what you thought of the session. We'd love to see you at more sessions. I'm not going to go through them now because we're out of time, but huge thank you. Thanks for coming, and hope to see you at more of the sessions later in the week. Thank you. Bye.
Fantastic. Thanks. Bye, everyone.